Stop. With your feet on the air, your head on the ground. Welcome back to Midnight Film Society. I'm your host, Damian Sherman. Here with me, as always, is
Derek McDuff.
Today, we are diving into a year that many consider one of the greatest in cinema history, 1999. The one thing that I always think of, Derek, when I think of 1999, I'm curious if this is similar with you. I think of the word genre, right? So many genre movies came out this year. Found footage, obviously, with Blair Witch, that kickstarted that found footage genre. Obviously, horror is all over the place this year with Sixth Sense, Ravenous, Sleepy Hollow. You got like Sci-Fi, The Matrix, Bicentennial Man, obviously that beloved sci-fi movie, Bicentennial Man, Star Wars, Galaxy Quest. We got comedies. The comedy genre was definitely highlighted here. Office Space, Mystery Men, American Pie.
Westerns. You got the Wiki Wild West. Yeah.
It's like that is the thing that I noticed with a lot of these. It's like a mixture. Wild Wild West is Western, sci-fi, comedy, action. Like so many movies. Mechanical Spiders. The Mummy is obviously huge in there. Trapman with action. Animation gets a huge showtime here with Iron Giant, Tarzan, Toy Story 2, South Park. Documentaries like I told you.
Don't list all of them.
Yes.
We gotta keep the people. We gotta
Sure.
like leave something for the people to wonder about.
Yeah. What's
list?
the picks?
Yeah.
What's the picks?
Yeah.
Just want to highlight, before we started recording, I talked about watching American movie for the first time. That's the big documentary from that year. Apparently, there was another one from Werner Herzog himself, called "My Best Fiend" or "My Best Friend," about his work with Klaus Kinski. But yeah, massive year for genre pictures, right?
Absolutely, yeah. There's a lot of good stuff across the board. Even some magical realism stuff. Hint. We'll see some of those come up on my list. But yeah, I'm a big genre fan. And even some stuff that you wouldn't think of as necessarily genre is in here. But even beyond genre, I think there's a lot of stuff in here that is all about like questioning our reality and our capitalist society that we live in, and it's kind of the peak of just like of America not having an enemy. This is obviously 2 years before 9/11. It's after the Cold War, so it's kind of like, well, it was the most introspective I think that America got, and that's reflected in a lot of the films. A lot of the movies on my list are movies about just kind of like this. A lot of them are about this crisis of masculinity and just kind of identity that I think the world, but especially the U.S., was going through at the time.
Yeah, crisis of identity is a big thing. You're right to point that out. So many movies from this year are like, what if I was not real? What if I wasn't a man?
Yeah.
What if I wasn't this other thing that I think I want to be? Three Kings, you have that, but you have, The Matrix and Fight Club that are definitely about like, masculinity. You have just so many movies that are about that stuff. And I wanted to ask you, we haven't done a top five in a while, but when we do top fives and we do best of the year so far, which we'll be getting to pretty soon, it's getting to that point. Every list we make, I ask you this question of like, how much were you trying to fit in things that are talked about all the time, and how much are you fitting in things that mean specifically something to you and something that you think should be highlighted more so than the have been in past years?
I mean, there's some like 99, obviously iconic year, and there's some movies on here, especially I'd say towards the very top and very bottom of my list. Well, I don't know, maybe throughout the whole thing, I guess. It's kind of a mix of both, I think. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything on my list that is like people are gonna be like, what is that movie? But there's one or two that I think are like not talked about when people talk about how great 99 is, that I think are really phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I think just like anything, you kind of have to, you don't want to be dissuaded from putting something on the list because you're like, well, this has been talked about nauseum, but you're
Right.
also like it's an important movie. You kind of just want to make your own list, and how important it was to you and to how you and cultural importance is important too, but so is quality. So you know I found a balance. I think a pretty good balance in my list.
Nice. And one other thing I want to ask you before we get to our top five. The last time I did this, I think we talked a little bit about this when I first started this podcast back in 2019. That was the 20th anniversary of 1999, obviously. Now we're in 25 years from 1999, which is very scary to think about. Yeah. I've seen a few movies from that year that were not on my list that I couldn't even consider back then, 5 years ago, because I haven't seen them. There's a couple that I've seen since then that I'll mention that may be on the list or may not be on the list. Have you seen anything for this list specifically, and anything that you have seen in the last couple of years that you considered for putting on this list?
There is one movie that is on this list that I saw within the last 6 months.
Gotcha.
I won't say what it is, but a lot, and it's weird because it's like some of the stuff is stuff I haven't watched in 10 or 15 years, but I'm like, this is such a good movie. I got to put it on the list. I hope I remember it well enough.
Yeah.
I did actually want to try and watch a spoiler. Magnolia is not going to be on my list. I haven't seen it. I really wanted to watch Magnolia in preparation for this, but I ran out of time. I was doing some other podcasts and doing some prep for some other stuff, so I just ran out of time. So I didn't. There's a few that didn't make the cut, and some of them are ones that I've rewatched recently in theaters, because there's two movies that got re-released into theaters this year because of the 25th anniversary thing that I've always loved, but maybe even raised in my estimation. There's one in particular that raised in my kind of esteem. So. Yeah. Well, speaking of how I wasn't able to watch Magnolia, do you have any movies that you haven't seen that people might be like, oh, where was this one, and you just didn't get a chance to see it yet?
It's a good question. I'm glad you asked it, because it sets up a movie I wanted to mention. Going back to the first thing you talked about, which is Identity, big year for Identity. Boys Don't Cry, big movie from that year. Haven't seen. Really wanted to catch it to try to fit it somewhere on this list. But yeah, that is one of the big ones.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've got a couple myself. That, like I mentioned, Magnolia. There's a couple big Oscar movies that I haven't seen from that year. American Beauty, which here hasn't aged super well.
Nope.
Green Mile. Talented Mr. Ripley being another big one. And then, But I'm a Cheerleader. I really have wanted to see that movie for quite some time. This is also a big movie or big year for a lot of queer awakening type movies. Obviously, But I'm a Cheerleader. And then, we talked about The Matrix, which people now realize, oh, this is like a trans metaphor, So, I think that there is a couple that I missed out on, unfortunately, but I checked my Letterboxd and it says I watched 55 movies from this year.
Yeah.
So, that's not nothing,
Yeah, it isn't nothing.
I got all the big ones, I got Stuart Little, I've seen that one, so.
Yeah, there you go. Famously rewritten or first draft done by Mr. Shyamalan, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. One of his first credits.
Yes, exactly. Why don't you do us the honor of kicking us off? What is your number 5 film from 1999?
Are we just doing top 5? I had a 10, but okay, I could do. I could do.
Okay.
Yeah,
we can do.
How
many
did you do?
I did 10.
Okay. Do you want to do 5 through or 10 through 5 real quick, or how do you want to?
Sure, I'll do 10 through 5 real quick. Yeah.
Okay.
So at number 10, I have Three Kings. Fantastic film that I did just catch up with in the last 5 years. Obviously, David O. Russell directed film. Famous hard ass on set. Famously screamed at I forget the actress's name. Lily Tomlin, I think, screamed at her on the I Heart Huckabees set. So that sucks. But yeah, some of the early George Clooney movie that he was in, early Wahlberg, early early Ice Cube, Spike Jonze. That's the other thing you can definitely take away from 1999. It was the year of a lot of breakout roles and breakout movies from directors and writers and actors, and some of their biggest movies to date happened in 1999. But yeah, just one of, I think it's also a hidden gem of 99, Three Kings is, didn't make a lot of money. Actually it did decently, made $107 million on a $48 million budget, which people would kill for in 2024. Yeah. But yeah, incredible war movie. I think that's another genre I forgot to leave out when I mentioned genre movies from this year. But one of the great war movies from the late 1900s. But yeah, have you seen this film, Derek?
No, and it's been on my list forever. And I think part of the reason I haven't watched it is because David Russell sucks.
Yeah.
But it does see, because it's kind of like a heist war movie. Am I right in thinking that?
Yes, it is a heist movie. Yep,
no?
You're right.
Okay,
yep.
Cool.
Yep.
And I love heist movies, especially when they combine them with other genres you wouldn't expect. So
yeah,
just one I haven't gotten around to yet that I really need to watch.
Yeah, recommend checking it out. What's your number 10?
My number 10 is Office Space. Wow,
it's low.
I think this is
slow,
movie.
Man. Slow.
You know what? There's a lot of good movies that came out this year, Dave.
Somebody's got to kiss you on Mondays.
It's a real fucking good movie. This is, I think, Mike Judge masterpiece. People always talk about Idiocracy, but I think this is really the one.
Yeah.
That just really captures just kind of being stuck in that corporate life and wanting to burn it all down, and really, really iconic performance from what's his name? Fucking the guy. Well, I'm just gonna need you to.
Yes.
Gary Cole.
Gary Cole. Yes.
Yeah. It's phenomenal in this. So yeah, I think it really captures that kind of just. This a lot might be like the movie, part of the reason why I never did get an office job, because it just seems like absolute hell on earth. So yeah. I haven't seen this one in quite some time, but I think it's kind of brilliant.
Yeah, I just rewatched it a few months ago. Infinitely rewatchable, infinitely quotable. I think it's a kind of a perfect movie, and I don't say that lightly. But it's also, a perfect movie doesn't have to be like, Oscar award winning. It just can be something you like to throw on, because all the beats of it. Yeah. It's perfectly
one
made.
of those Comedy Central movies, that was always on for from 2007 to 2019 or something.
It got heavy rotation on Comedy Central. It got DVD. It was one of those movies that got saved by DVD sales early on, which is another thing people would kill for in 2024. Right. Just an amazing group of character actors are in this. Obviously, you mentioned Gary Cole, Stephen Root. Killed this role. I think he's a guy that just disappears into roles, and it's again, it's a movie that didn't need him to do that. He didn't need to go that hard, as the kids say. And just it's sort of, what was I watching the other day? I'm going through. I'm rewatching all the P and Pete episodes, and it's a movie that's like P and Pete because it lives in this weird, ambiguous gray area of, you mentioned like magical realism, but all the things he's doing in this movie would get you at least fired, at not the least, and just at least get you arrested at the worst. Chopping down his office, his cubicle, and just knocking down that wall, not coming in, just telling off his boss. Obviously, Jennifer Aniston has that classic scene where she flips off her boss because she wasn't wearing enough flair for him. Just incredible. Then embezzling, hundreds of thousands of dollars over a 1-day period would probably get them, sent to jail, which is, right. Another interesting movie about this is that has a scene in it where somebody's stealing a bunch of money, but they blow up the building and everything's fine, even though they probably had the bank records on file and didn't have them all locally stored, which, is a reference to the Fight Club, the end of Fight Club, where he blows up all the banks because he wants to set everybody back to zero, which again, not realistic in the least. And so, yeah, just incredible movie that you can just go back to and think about and reference. And like you said, it probably did inspire an entire generation of men and women to not take an office job. Yeah. Incredible movie.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
Really, really just, eminently rewatchable.
Yes, it absolutely is. So my number nine, I'm gonna go with SLC Punk. I just sent you. It came up on my TikTok, so I sent you a clip of it. You have not seen this movie, have you?
Which one?
SLC
You
Punk.
said. Oh no, I have not.
Yeah, I
What
just
is
sent
LSC Punk? You said.
SLC Punk. Yep. I'll send you a
I don't even know if I've heard of it.
Wikipedia. Another movie with actors that this is, they were known people at this
Oh,
point.
I've seen this poster. Okay, but I don't
Yeah,
know what it is. Okay.
Matthew Lillard was a known quantity at this point for things like Hackers from 1995. Annabeth Gish was coming up. I think she would have been in. I think she was taking over for in X Files. She was taking over for Mulder after he left, so she stepped into his shoes on that. Devon Sawa, I think, was also in Idle Hands the same year, so big year for Devon Sawa. A few years after Casper. Jason Segel, this is one of his early roles. I think this is a year after Slackers, which is another incredible, like, just idiot stoners doing dumb shit because they're bored movie. Yeah, really just coming of age movie too. I was 14 at this time, so this movie and Fight Club and Office Space and all these movies about fuck the system, fuck the man, fuck money, fuck working, fuck a job, very much in that Train Spotting milieu of, what is that? What is that line? It's not fuck your life. It's choose your job, choose life, choose this, choose that, right?
Oh,
from
Train Spotting. Yeah,
Train Spotting, yeah. So it had a lot of that
movie,
stuff.
in my opinion, about how Gen X is like is just kind of like apolitical and doesn't do anything ever.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that about a lot this movie and Fight Club and a lot of that anarchy sort of disposition, right? That a lot of people had back then. So yeah, again, very rewatchable. But has a really bummer ending. I won't ruin how it ends, but it's just a very, very bummer ending. One of the great acting performances by Matthew Lillard in that scene. His friend is played by Michael Gurigan. I don't know what else he's been in. Just perusing his Wikipedia right here. Yeah, not a lot of stuff he was in after that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just incredible. Little appearances by, was it Devon Sawa? I thought there was somebody else in here. Oh, Christopher McDonald, that piece of shit. Another piece of shit that I eat for breakfast.
You eat pieces of shit for breakfast.
Who is in this? And I was like, that he plays a weird German guy. Okay, this guy Till Schweizman.
Till Schweiger. Oh,
Till
yeah.
Schweiger.
He's in Glorious Bastards, and then he was
is.
just in Ministry of Gentlemanly Warfare. He's great.
He's very good. He plays a German in this. It's very funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is one of those you're talking about trying to check things off on your list from 99 before we did this. I would highly recommend. This is one of those that you probably come back and be like, oh, I understand Damien so much better after watching this movie. So yeah, my number 9 movie from 99, SLC Punk.
Yeah. I'm 0 for 2 now with your picks. I haven't seen this either, like I was saying. And yeah, okay. I don't think I have any cuts as deep as this, but I'm looking it up right now, and apparently this movie is streaming on Tubi, which makes so much sense.
Yeah, dude, Tubi, rise up, Tubi Nation, rise up.
Right.
What's your number 9, sir?
My number 9, and you're gonna get mad at me because this is low, but like I said, this is some bangers this year. My number 9 is Fight Club. Obviously, influential, huge movie. That is often, I think, misinterpreted by a lot of people. People do the thing where they idolize the guy you're not supposed to idolize, Tyler Durden. Oh, yeah. But it really is that 90s thing of like the Gen Xers wanting to feel like they're rebels and punk, and they don't really have anything to rebel against, and their lives are actually like really kind of cushy, and they have it way better than any millennial will ever have it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, obviously, this is, for me, a little bit lower tier Fincher, but it's still David Fincher, right? Like, and that's the thing. It's like, it might be lower in the ranking of 99 movies. It might be lower in the ranking of David Fincher movies, but that's because both of those lists are absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, I mean, mischief mayhem soap, which is a weird tagline, but it does really capture, I think, the vibe of the moment of these people who wanted to rebel, but they had nothing to rebel against. And
Yeah.
I think that's even Tyler Durden says that a couple times in the movie, something along those lines in the movies is like, we are like what I can't remember what he says because it's been a few years since I watched it, but he's like, we are the children of this generation where we have no great battle, we have no great fight like our
Mm.
fathers and grandfathers had, and they're just kind of this lost generation, and how that affected that whole thing. And it does, so the filmmaking in it is so smart and brilliant, and all those spliced images and weird hidden things. His name was Robert Paulson, and how you know Project Mayhem devolved, and the great twist at the end, which doesn't actually make any sense at all if you think about it, but it's still so fucking cool.
About him being the same guy.
Yeah.
I'm curious if it doesn't make sense in the sense that I was thinking of it for a while, where at the very beginning, the Fight Club grows because Jack, let's call him Jack, Edward Norton's character.
Yeah.
He's fighting himself. He's punching himself throughout most of it, right? So the movement, the Fight Club, the origin of it is some guy watching Jack punch himself in the face and going, "I've got next." Is that your issue with it?
That's like, there's a lot of stuff like that where if you stop and think about it, you're like, wait, so what was he doing in this situation? And it's like, I guess some of it could be explained away, but it's just one of those movies that just like, it feels like it's like, all right, like, what was happening in this scene though? Like, who,
Yeah.
like, it's Leo. I'm not here to like, I'm not cinema sins over here. I'm not trying to fucking pick apart this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, there are those points where he's banging her, but then he's also downstairs and she leaves, or she comes downstairs and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing here?" And she's like, "What?" He's like, "Why are you here? Why are you in my house?" She's like, "Fuck you," and then she just leaves. One of my favorite points of that of Marla is her coming to Project Mayhem, coming to the house, and Project Mayhem is in full swing. All the guys are doing, the gardening and carpentry and house cleaning and all this kind of stuff. And Jack goes out in like a robe and underwear and with a Jack Daniels swinging on his hand. And she walks out, doesn't say anything. She just looks at him and he goes, "What? Tyler's not here. Tyler's gone. Tyler went away." I still remember the cadence that he says it in, and she just looks at him and she just walks away because obviously, in retrospect,
She thinks he's Tyler.
She thinks he's Tyler. To her, he is Tyler. So that scene always made me laugh. Yeah,
that's a great scene. That's one of those like some of those movies that are like really reward a rewatch, and that scene is like, you're like, once you like understand the context of it, you're like, well done.
And also the scene that you go back and rewatch, knowing the context of it and knowing what the movie's trying to tell you and the lessons the movie's trying to give you, is they're on the bus and some guy, pushes by Tyler and pushes them, and the guy just gives them a look as he walks away. And I believe they're fighting him in the very next scene. But also what happens in the next scene is, first in the bus, when they're in the bus, Jack says to Tyler, "Look up," and there's an ad, there's like a Calvin Klein ad with a guy in his underwear, and he's just jacked to the max, and he's just like veins and abs and all kinds of shit. And Tyler goes, "Self-improvement is masturbation." And then it hard cuts to Tyler in a fight, and he's just beating the fuck out of some guy. I think he's punching him like straight in the dick. And the guy yells, "Stop." And Tyler gets up, and it's that classic shot of Brad Pitt, sweaty and ripped, and his abs are showing. So it's just that sort of, quick cut. If you're aware of what the movie is doing at that point, that's a very clever, smash cut to that.
Right, and it's another one of those movies that's really just deconstructing toxic masculinity and this, these things these guys have to do to think because women have rights now, and it's the 90s when this comes out. Men have to do all this stuff to like feel relevant, and it just kind of like, it's just like, this is all fucking bullshit, and it's very homoerotic, with that being very subtextual. And it feels like, once again, the stuff I was saying about this. You're having a lot of like kind of queer awakening movies, and sometimes it's in the text and sometimes it's in the subtext. And here it's like every scene is in the subtext, and it says all this really interesting stuff about corporate America and all that without it being too edgelord. So it's kind of making fun of those people a little bit. Yeah. So really, it's fucking Fight Club. Like, I'm sure I mean, I don't know if we were going to talk about it later, but it had to be on my list.
Actually not. I have a bunch of stuff on my
Oh,
list
wow.
that I've added since I've seen it. So I had to drop Fight Club down just because like I said in the beginning,
Okay.
really wanted to take the opportunity here just to highlight lesser seen 99 movies on my list anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, speaking of talking about lesser known movies from 99, and one I just saw recently was called Ravenous. A movie called Ravenous is my number 8 movie from 1999. This is a movie directed by Antonio Bird. I'm not sure what else this person has done. Doesn't seem like a lot. Seems like they did some television, some other films. Yeah, that's another trademark from '99. It's like a person doing like 1 or 2 movies and then just dropping off the face of the earth.
Right.
One of them being Troy Duffy, who did obviously Boondock Saints, and they made a documentary. Speaking of documentaries about crazy filmmakers making one low budget
Overnight.
movie. Overnight, yeah, the movie from 2003
Wait,
about Troy Duffy, about the making of Boondock Saints. But yeah, going back to the movie I was talking about, called Ravenous from 1999. It is, and again, talking about 99 being this year of sort of undefinable movies, because this movie, spoiler alert for people who haven't seen Ravenous, it is a cannibalism movie. Becomes a cannibalism movie. Starts out as a pretty typical movie during the Mexican-American War. So it's pretty much a war film, a Western, and things like that. And then it very much devolves into a horror movie involving cannibalism. This movie, again, talking about guys that popped off this year and would pop off in the coming years. Guy Pearce, this movie starring Guy Pearce, who would obviously be in Memento I think even 1 year later. Memento was what, 2000, 2001?
Maybe it's 2001.
Somewhere around there. But yeah, Guy Pearce is in this. Robert Carlyle.
2000, yeah.
Yeah, Robert Carlyle, speaking of Trainspotting, he's in this. Jeremy Davies, known for Spanking the Monkey, Saving Private Ryan, Solaris, bunch of different movies, playing Charles Manson. Lost, yeah. Stack cast. Neil McDonough, with the blonde-haired guy with the blue-eyed blonde-haired guy from Band of Brothers is in this. Stack cast, great movie.
He's always like the fourth lead in everything,
Yeah.
Chasing down Tom Cruise or whatever he's doing.
Fantastic movie. Can't speak highly enough of Ravenous.
Man, the streak continues. 0 for 3. All right, let's
dude.
see how long we can keep
Yeah,
this going.
I specifically
on your list.
Yeah, specifically made this list, specifically brought us here today to dunk on you, to dunk on your knowledge, on your 99 knowledge.
Well, I'm going to be talking about movies that, actually people have seen and liked for the most part.
All right. What's your number 8 film from 99?
My number 8 film is Election, from Alexander Payne, written and directed. He is one of my favorite working directors. I've loved pretty much everything he's done. This is a movie I saw before I really knew who Alexander Payne was. I actually had not seen this one in who knows how long. But I remember, and so it wasn't on my list initially when I was making it, but I was like, I gotta put Election on here. I didn't even have a star rating on Letterboxd, but this movie's so good. It's almost like the fact that this movie came out in 1999 is insane to me, because this feels like a movie that was made as a direct response to the 2000 election. And it's
absolutely.
So it's like did Alexander Payne know the future? Like it feels like such sharp satire of that. And you were to the point where you're like, that's a pretty on the nose, but then you're like, nope, actually this movie predated real life, like which is so wild. I think it's really just a really great critique of, all these democratic machinations of high school. It really captures how weird it is to be in high school. And this is, I think, the best Matthew Broderick's ever been. I would say the same thing for Reese Witherspoon. She feels incredibly well cast here, as does Chris Klein, who, he's been miscast before. Like, there's that Legend of Chun-Li video. I don't know if you've seen, where he's just delivering some of the worst. Oh, you got to check it out. It's just a compilation of every line that Chris Klein delivers in The Legend of Chun-Li, and he's oh my god. But here he is used to perfection, where he's just kind of this nice G-shucks pretty boy who just wants to do the best thing, who's kind of a bro also. Really incredible, sharp satire from a really, really good writer who also directs a hell of a film. And is this his first movie, or is no?
Um,
I guess he
it's
has.
yeah,
It's one
something
of his
called
first big ones, I guess.
one of his first big ones. I think one of his first big ones I still need to see is called Citizen Ruth with Laura Dern in like 95. I want to say
Mm,
95, 96. But yeah,
96? Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
What was I gonna say? Yeah, we talked about me watching Sideways for the first time, and yeah, like you said, you go back and watch this. This feels like, you know, Sideways feels like a step back in terms of like production and cinematography and music and all of that kind of stuff. When you go back and watch Election, you're like, what happened? What happened, Mr. Payne? But yeah, just incredible. Great
I
music.
love Sideways though, so I don't know what the
Yeah.
frick you're talking about.
No, it just felt like more, feel like they didn't have the same resources. I don't know. It just doesn't seem as, what do you call it? Like, confident. I don't know what the word is. It just feels like a movie that came before everything else. But anyways, yeah. Election, fantastic film. Should mention, talking about elections, the front runner for the Republican convention got sentenced. Well, he didn't get sentenced today. He found guilty on all 34 counts, right? All 34 counts found guilty. Could be given up to 5 years in prison, but most likely won't. But also, even if he did go to prison, there's nothing on the books saying a person in prison can't run for president. So that's great. Good for us.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
What a society we live in. It's an interesting time to be alive.
Very interesting time to be alive. Yes, that was your number 8 movie from '99, the election.
Yep.
All right,
Number 8. So what movie is your number 7 that I haven't seen?
I think you might have just seen this. I don't know. My brain is fried. I can't remember every single movie you've talked about. My number 7 movie is Existence, David Cronenberg's Existence. Existence. Thank you. Am I correct in saying that you saw this film recently?
I did just see this film
Gotcha.
recently because I was on shout out to Matt and Mark Movie Show. They were covering it. They're like, "You want to come on and talk about this movie?" And I was like, "Sure." Patricia Arquette has a bone. No, not Patricia. What's her name? Who's the actress?
Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Jennifer Jason Leigh's got her like bone gun when Jude Law is there. Get into it, man. Get into it.
So it has all the qualities of a 1999 movie. It's about identity. It's about realism. Are we living in a reality that is constructed by somebody else? Very strange for that to come out in 99. Jude Law is popping off in this movie and another movie I'll be talking about later in the same year. Christopher Eccleston role in this. Random Willem Dafoe is in this. It's a mix. It's a mixture of sci-fi, horror, body horror. It's just so many. Again, mixing of genres is a thing I really want to see come back in mainstream filmmaking nowadays. Music by Howard Shore. Didn't make a ton of money, but yeah, very much my shit. Very much gross body horror. Some extreme violence, some questioning of reality, some just, great practical, a lot of pegging, great practical effects. What more can you ask for from a movie?
Yeah. The way my letterbox review for this one is it's Inception for perverts.
It really is. It actually is Inception for perverts. Now I can say it's like Inception or Paprika for perverts, which I just go on record and saying like Paprika inspiring Inception is like saying Existence inspired Inception. Like it's basically the same thing. If you can say like anything that has a dream reality, like that'd be like saying Lawnmower Man inspired Inception. It's it's more. It's not really a dream so much as it was like constructed reality that was Existence is constructed reality, but also Paprika. I think it was dreams. I'm not gonna say it wasn't. It was definitely people having to become unconscious to go into the world. But yeah, it's Inception is very much its own thing. Very, very much its own thing.
No, yeah, it's like people like to do that and be like, oh, well, it's just this. And it's like, no, like he might have had a little bit of inspiration, but it's really its own concept that,
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not trying to say that Nolan was ripping anybody off, but you definitely draw some parallels between the two.
Yes, you could. So what is your number 7? Right, we're up to 7.
6. So that was your number 6
That was my number 6,
or
right?
should have been.
So,
Yeah. So yeah,
yeah.
mine. This is probably my least seen one. It's not like an unpopular movie, because in the same way that Office Space was one of those movies that was on the Comedy Central rotation, this is, I feel like, a movie that was like in TNT or like TBS rotation.
Yeah.
And it's a really dad movie. And it's maybe just kind of the most conventional slash boring movie on my list. But I think it's a movie that, like, low key people forget like how good this movie is, and that's October Sky.
Oh, yeah.
This is probably my favorite Joe Johnston movie. And yeah, I think, was it you who sent me that TikTok the other day of Jake Gyllenhaal? He had this like really intense scene with Chris Cooper, and Chris Cooper's
Oh, yeah.
like, you know what? Yeah, like, just stop, like, you just stop acting and just listen,
Yeah.
This is just, really just basic story. Like, this is one of those movies where it's like, it's not revolutionary, it's not crazy, it does feel like a movie you would get a journeyman like Joe Johnston to do, but it's just the best example of something like that, right? You've got Laura Dern, Jake Gyllenhaal, I mentioned Chris Cooper, and they're just all giving phenomenal performances. It's the story of this kid from a coal mining town, and his dad doesn't get him, but he has these dreams, and it just does a really good job of effectively telling a really universal story that I think pretty much everybody can relate to. Is like, you want to do this thing, but you feel like you're supposed to do this other thing, but you have these dreams. And I think that the title of the movie is really dumb. It should be called Rocket Boys, which was the name of the book, but they thought, because it's the 90s, they were like, well, girls won't see a movie called Rocket Boys. So it's like October Sky is like an anagram for Rocket Boys, I guess.
Oh.
But yeah, I really love October Sky. It's a movie it's one of those movies that, like I said, if you're flipping by TNT, you just stop and you're like, not that we channel surf anymore, but like, it was one of those movies where you are flipping, you're like, oh, cool. I'm gonna watch 5 minutes of October Sky, and then the credits are rolling,
Yeah. I think I do have to revisit this. I think we watched this in like, I had a horticulture class when I was in high school.
Oh, this is a very, very high school teacher put it on kind of movie. I feel like.
It really is. I do need to revisit it. Speaking of Joe Johnston, they were on the Corridor Crew this week. They did parts of The Pagemaster, and just talking about how amazing that movie looks for 1994. Yeah. I don't think I've seen that one either. I think I've seen The Rocketeer. Definitely saw a lot of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, which I didn't know was a Joe Johnston movie. Yeah. I don't think I've seen Hidalgo. Yeah.
Oh, Hidalgo it's another one of those movies where it's just like, really like whatever basic story, but like you've probably seen it a bunch of times before, but like just delivered just, with a lot of competence. Like, it's not flashy or anything, but it gets the job done.
Yeah, I'm just looking at his filmography. Apparently The Wolfman was an early Emily Blunt film from 2010. That's interesting.
I fucking love The Wolfman. It's super underrated. I'm going to cover it at some point.
All right.
People hate that movie, but I think it's great.
Wow, you're a Joe Johnston guy, huh?
I really, I mean, Jurassic Park 3 kind of sucks, but other than that,
I was gonna say,
like he did the original Jumanji. It was like one of the early Marvel guys. He did the first Avenger, which is,
he did.
It feels like he got that job because of The Rocketeer, which is absolutely one of my favorite movies. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, haven't seen it since I was a wee child.
Yeah.
But yeah, like he's one of those guys who, there's not like a Joe Johnston style, but I think of all the journeyman directors, I think he's probably like in the top 1 or 2.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was your number 6.
Mm-hmm. And he's a guy who, like, who, if you got a movie, you need somebody to come in and bring it in under budget and do a good job with it. You call him,
Yeah, that's the definition of a workman director.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would be number 6. Before we get to top 5 movies from '99, when we take a break, and we will be right back. And we're back talking top 5 films.
Yeah. I do have to apologize. I'm sure the listeners are yelling at us.
99. Doing my own.
Because I think I fucked up, Damien. I was wrong. You were right. I was wrong. We're at number 6. I just realized.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought I skipped one.
Yeah.
For listeners and for transparency, I didn't make a top 10. I just made a top 5, and that's like the bottom 5 in just whatever order. So I'm just picking and choosing here.
You know what I think happened, and I think is that, and we can review the tape. But I think you said six, and so then I
Yeah.
was like, okay, cool, we're at six. I still gave my seven,
Okay, you gave your
but I
seven.
think I gave my seven. So because I realized like when you said top five, I was like, wait a minute, I'm looking at my letterbox list, and I
Yeah.
see more than so. I think that's what led us down the path is we're both of us stumbling.
Yeah. So what do you want to do? You wanted to? Are we missing one? Is what you're saying, or we skipped one?
I mean, I've still got yeah, I haven't given my number six yet, so.
Okay. Okay, we can do that because I have your. You've mentioned one that is my number five. So if you want to do your
Okay.
six and five together, that'll get us back on track. I think.
Okay, so
Yeah.
because we've each given four picks. So,
Correct.
okay, all right.
So
So
yeah, what
yeah,
is your number six?
my number six is The Mummy. Just this is one of the two that I mentioned that I went and saw in a theater that was re-released this year, and man, this is just. I was just like, I hate to say this because it's so cliche, but like they don't make them like they used to, you know?
Yeah.
Like this is just a fucking rip roaring adventure movie with just some like romantic leads that like they're like shooting mummies and like and then you're like the slow burning romance and then it's got the comedy character and you know there's elements of horror but it's like it feels like you know kind of the successor to the Indiana Jones films you know like all three, everyone in this, you know, Fraser, of course, is credible in this. Rachel Weisz, John Hannah, and then Arnold Vosloo as just like the mummy. It's so good. The pacing is so interesting because he doesn't really become the mummy. Like, doesn't even show up until like halfway through the movie. You're like, wow, this is like really well paced. You know, just a great adventure Steven Sommers movie. I would say clearly his best movie. Um, but yeah, man, it's just I love a good adventure movie. I love a good action adventure movie, and you have movies like The Jungle Book are coming out today, and they're trying to do the same thing as this. And really, since probably Pirates of the Caribbean 1, there hasn't been a movie that I would say is of this genre in this caliber. This is one of the all-time greats when it comes to action adventure films.
Yeah, this is a movie. One of the first movies I remember looking forward to because I knew both of the leads from previous
Mm,
movies.
George of the Jungle.
Of course, George of the Jungle. Clearly, let me see. What was he in? He was in one of those early. Wasn't he the Frozen guy in the Frozen
Oh, Encino Man. Yeah, yeah,
Encino
yeah.
Man are in Airheads, and he actually has a really long filmography before that. Gods and Monsters, Blast from the Past, yeah, Blast from the Past, and this movie. Again, talking about trademarks and talking about just things about movies from this year. A lot of actors putting a lot of movies in the same year. Blast from the Past, The Mummy, and Dudley Do-Right in the same year. Then Bedazzled after that. Rachel Weisz. Do you know what movie I saw Rachel Weisz in previously before The Mummy?
What movie you saw? I don't know.
It is a dad movie. It is one of those TNT movies, TBS movies that just get thrown on and like, oh shit, it's that movie. There's a movie from 1996 called Chain Reaction with Keanu Reeves, Morgan Freeman, Rachel Weisz, Fred Ward. Is essentially about, let me see if they give a quick synopsis. The plot centers on the invention of a new non-contaminating power source based on hydrogen and the attempts by the United States government to prevent the spreading of the technology to other countries. So it was an early, like, just a thriller, just a political thriller from the mid 90s that were like, I wasn't really into that kind of stuff back then. Obviously, as a little kid, none of that stuff really gave a shit about. Like, why do they want to not spread renewable energy? Why? I don't give a shit. But I just like, sick explosions. And the thing I remember about that movie is I'll get to the Mummy in a second. But the thing I remember about the superior Chain Reaction is that it has Keanu Reeves and Rachel Weisz. And for whatever reason, I think because of an explosion, Keanu Reeves has to have him and her with their clothes on in a bathtub to survive some sort of explosion, whatever it was. And then 10 years later, in Constantine, which Keanu Reeves and Rachel Weisz were also in, Keanu Reeves puts Rachel Weisz in a bathtub with her clothes on to, get the spirit out of her or put a spirit in her. I forget what the hell was going on, but it was very funny that a decade later, they would both be in the similar position. Yeah.
Right. It's weird that you had that. If you had a nickel for every time it happened, you had two nickels, but it's weird that it happened twice. Yeah.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
The Mummy, yeah, pretty good movie.
Yeah. The Mummy. Great,
um,
great movie. Yeah.
it's yeah, it's funny that it was like, they're trying to. It was long in development, one of those long in development movies that they're trying to update the original Mummy. And it's very funny that they're desperately trying to, do the dark universe and do all that kind of stuff
Right.
now, where it wasn't really a horror movie at all. It's known as a classic action adventure, swashbuckling action adventure from '99.
Yeah.
Less so of a horror movie, but definitely has horror tinges to it. Again, talking about movies from
Right.
this year that cross contaminated their genres.
Yeah, and cool because the original Mummy from like the 30s is definitely a horror movie, which I watched because I was such a big fan of this movie. And that movie's fine.
It's fine.
Pretty boring though.
It's very boring.
It's one of those like movies you're like, and the curse will happen, and I'm like, oh, cool, the curse. Imhotep's gonna turn into a fucking sand monster, and he just kind of like, hey, points at somebody or something, just like it's like okay.
Yeah, I went through the Universal Monster movies last year during Halloween just to stack my letterbox counts and also to check them out for the first time. And yeah, most of them are not great, especially Bride of Frankenstein, where the bride is literally in that movie for maybe 5 minutes. I heard they're making a new version, I think, this year alongside stuff like Nosferatu, so that should be interesting. Actually, I think I saw. Let me look it up because there's a bunch of people in that, and I'm like, what the fuck? Christian Bale, I think, is in it. I think it's directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal. Have you heard of this?
I have not.
Let me see. Right. Yeah, there's a bunch of like those paparazzi shots from the street of like, we get our first look at freaking Christian Bale. Let me see. Bride of Frankenstein. I think it's just called, The Bride of Frankenstein next year. Again, speaking of trying to get through this bummer of a year, a bunch of movies coming out next year. Something on Variety. Christian Bale is going to be The Bride. Maggie Gyllenhaal is directing. It's Christian Bale, Annette Bening, Peter Skarsgård. Yeah, should be interesting. Interesting. So that, your number, we got fucked up. That was your number
6. Yeah.
Number 6.
So wait, which one was your? Because you said one of my picks was also one of your picks. Which, but I don't think we said what it was. What was your
my
one? That was
number 5 was Election. Election.
You're like, okay, that makes sense. All right, so number 5 is Election. So then I guess I'll go to my number 5.
Yes, sir.
I'm curious to see if this is going to show up on your list because this is, I think, the back half of my list. Like obviously there's Fight Club and stuff like that, but I also have some ones that The Mummy. People like it, but it's not going to show up on the list. This is, I think, where it's like, all right, here we go. This is a big one. This is the one that I had only seen recently. Of course, it's the last movie that Stanley Kubrick ever directed, Eyes Wide Shut. This movie's great.
Not on my list, but very good. Very, very good.
Yeah. Right. Just absolutely phenomenal psychodrama, once again, about just the eroding masculinity as Tom Cruise, his entire life falls apart because Nicole Kidman, who is his wife at the time in real life and also in this movie, says she wanted to fuck a guy in the Navy. So he goes on this insane night, culminating in that crazy orgy. People are trying to maybe kill him, maybe not. Who knows? And then it's like a Russian nesting doll where he goes back and retraces his steps backwards the next day, and it's just this movie about modern relationships and the lies and the things you tell your partner, you don't tell your partner, and how that comes back on you, and just it's so weird and interesting and Kubrickian, and it's got stuff that it's just clearly like Kubrick is just like fucking with you, where there's like a character that's supposed to maybe be the same person, but she's played by 2 different actresses.
Yes.
Technically 3, because when you see that character masked, she's voiced by Cate Blanchett in like an uncredited role, and it's so weird and good, and I don't know, man. Like I loved this movie. It's like a new Christmas classic for me.
It is actually, yeah. That's one of those that are like, is it a Christmas movie? Yeah, sure. If you want it to be, doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
What was I going to say about this? I was trying to look up like movies like this. Again, the themes running throughout this top 5 are movies that genre. They mix their genres. They're about toxic masculinity, and they don't make them like they used to. I'm trying to find, while you're talking, I was trying to look up movies like this, and there really aren't. It's like, because what it is, Derek, it's like a movie for fucking adults. It's just a movie that you would never take a kid to, and it's not, it's like overly violent. But it's very fucking interesting. It stars a major movie star. Maybe Glenn Powell would be in something like this now, but again, talking about people that, movies that don't get made anymore, but specifically roles that don't get written anymore and actors that don't take those roles anymore. Because that is like, we're 99, 2000, 2002, around the end of Tom Cruise's let me just try shit, Edge of Tomorrow was probably his last time where he's like, let me just try shit. American, what was that one where he played the pilot? American Made. That was like one of the last things he ever did that wasn't a Mission Impossible movie. I'm trying to look through. And
even those movies are like action movies, because it feels like Tom Cruise is like, I think after this and like, Magnolia, kind of like he didn't get the awards recognition. I feel like he stopped taking risks, and he just became like, people will go see me if I'm running, if I'm running from doing some action shit. And he stopped taking chances, which is a bummer, because like, he's obviously like, who doesn't love the Mission Impossible movies? But it's like, when he was just trying shit, like, and doing weird things for auteur directors, it was kind of the best.
It really was. One movie that sort of treads along those same lines. I think I mentioned it a couple of months ago when I first watched it, but Birth, Jonathan Glazer's second movie, I want to say, with Nicole Kidman playing a frustrated upper crust woman, sexually frustrated upper crust woman. If you were jonesing for an Eyes Wide Shut type movie that's starring Nicole Kidman, definitely check out Birth. That's really the only thing I can find. I mean, I think internationally there's probably stuff like that I'm not finding. That was one of the big ones that I wanted to check in with and highlight before we hopped on here, but I couldn't quite find enough of them. Was it international movies? Because I think those are the places people need to start seeking out if they want something like Eyes Wide Shut nowadays.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. And like, international ones are tough too, because I feel like, especially when you're coming with a year list, because it's like, do you go by the international release? Do you go by the US release? If I was going by US releases, Princess Mononoke would be number one on this list, like, no question. But I consider that a '97 movie, because that's when it came out originally. Didn't come to the States for a couple of more years, and that was still in the time period where things wouldn't come out. Like, now it's like, things pretty much come out the same day or within like a month or two of each other. Maybe there's a little bit of a staggered release, but back then, like, you would have to wait 2 years for the Miyazaki movie. Now it's like, all right, you might have to wait till December when they got it in, like August or something.
Yeah. Speaking of pretentious picks that I was thinking about choosing was Beau Travail, the Claire Denis movie from '99. Speaking of staggered release dates, it came out, debuted at the 1999 Venice Film Festival, but didn't come out in France until May 2000. So that was one reason I left it off. But also, I was just, I have enough. I think I had, 3 on here that you haven't seen that were obscure 1999 releases. Yeah. Yeah, 3 was enough. And also, Beau Travail is a very good movie, but I can't honestly say that's one of my favorites.
That's a 2000 movie, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. So that was your number 5. We were officially in the top 5 movies of 1999. Yeah. We are headed to number 5. Like I said, my number 5 was Election. We started with you, so you kick us off with your number 4. Film
it's your number 4, because I just did 2 in a row, so it's back to you.
Okay, I will do that. Okay, yeah, sure. So actually we can't, because my number 4 is one you mentioned already. I should have held off. Should have told you to hold off. But it's Office Space. I already said my piece, but yeah, that is my number 4. I revisited it. I watched some behind the scenes footage of deleted scenes. One where the main guy, I forget his actual name, Peter's talking to his coworkers and saying, like, it was a scene in one of the bars they were at, not Chosky's, but somewhere else. And he's explaining, like, if I quit right now and I don't pay my bills. I got like 18 months till they kick me out. Yeah, I'll be fine. I just want to try some shit. definitely didn't work with the rest of the tone of the movie, but yeah. And also there was like a Entertainment Tonight behind the scenes that I found randomly on YouTube the other day of them in the wardrobe and their makeup and the hair, and it was very funny to see Milton dressed up as Milton, but not talking as Milton. John C. McGinley in his wardrobe, talking about how I forget the actor's name. Richard Rahali as Tom, the guy that goes in there and he's like, so what would you say you do here, Tom? And he's like, so I take the product from the guys, from the engineers, and I bring it to the customer. And they're like, why couldn't the engineers just bring it to the customer? And he's like, well, because I'm a people person, God damn it. And they're like, okay, yeah, sure you are, buddy. Sure you are. Jeez, it was so.
He's the guy who's like jumped to conclusions, right?
He is. Yes, he's the guy.
That's such a good stupid joke.
I didn't catch this like on the first couple of viewings, but he's like trying to kill himself in the garage. But he has the car going, and his wife comes in. And she's like, "What are you doing in here?" He's like, "Oh, I'm just fiddling with it. Fucking something happened." He's like, "Oh, okay. You doing okay, honey?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And he backs out, and they're like, the truck just blindsides him on this road where it's just like a small. I'm assuming like what do they call those? Just
cul-de-sac?
Thank you. Cul-de-sac, exactly. So there's nobody there, and the guy's doing like 50 miles an hour in a cul-de-sac. It's like, what the fuck? Makes no sense. But again, talking about like the magical realism of a lot of these movies where in Fight Club, where he's assaulting himself in his boss's office. Yeah. It's like, there's no cameras there. Nobody else saw him. He's been a problem employee for a while. So clearly something happened where the boss, check the boss's hands. Do his boss's hands have any blood on them? No, then clearly, okay. Anyways. Yeah, that's very funny. Yeah. Office Space is my number 4. Derek, what is your number 3?
By the way, I like how no, we're going to my number 4, Damien.
You're number 4. Okay.
Keep skipping fucked up. I like also how you were like, I'm not going to talk about it, and then you talk about it for fun. Yeah, my number 4 is it's the only animated movie I have on my list. It's also the only sequel that I have on my list, and that is, of course, Toy Story 2.
Woo!
An absolutely perfect movie. This is a movie Toy Story 1, obviously 5-star, phenomenal film, first CG animated, completely CG animated movie.
Yeah,
really great movie, completely holds up. But it's one of those ones where it's like it feels like it was a little simple, and Toy Story 2 just added a little bit more. It's a longer movie. It's incredible that this movie is this good because it was originally supposed to be like a straight to DVD sequel, like Disney was so keen on doing in the 90s. But yeah, this movie's great. It introduces a lot of spectacular characters. Primary amongst them is my favorite Toy Story character, Jessie, of course, voiced by Joan Cusack. She's just so great in this. But yeah, and then you have Woody and Buzz coming back, going on this. What I thought about Toy Story 2.
What was the movie? Was it 2 or 1 where they lost like the hard drive and had to reboot it?
I think it might have been 2, I want to say. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Hard drive. Let's see. Oh, yeah, it was 2. Yep. Let's see. The Next Web. Next Web has the breaking story. How Pixar's Toy Story 2 was deleted twice, once by technology and again for its own good. What the fuck?
The first one was because it was when they were trying to make it a made for straight to DVD movie, and it was apparently not good, and they were like, you know what, scrap this, we're gonna make a theatrical movie, really put some effort into this, and they clearly did. It almost got like the Return of Jafar treatment, where it was just gonna be like a fine, whatever, cheaply made sequel that was a shadow of its original one, but instead it managed to be one of the few movies sequels that surpassed the already incredible original, in my opinion.
Yes. What is your thoughts on 3? Because I think people seem to be thinking that 4 is almost better than 3 just because of the ending of 3.
I don't know about that. I feel like people like 4, but I don't think they think it's as good as the first trilogy, but
Yeah.
3 is even rarer for me, which is the third one that's even better than the second one, which is even better than the first one. Like, it's a
Yeah.
trilogy that are all, I think, 5-star movies where each one is better than the last of that original trilogy. And 4 is fine, it's whatever, but like 3, oh my god, that, and maybe it's just because, like I said, I'm the perfect age for it, but like
Yeah.
that last scene is so like the first one's it's good. It doesn't really have any really hard hitting emotional beats. The second one has that like that song by Sarah McLachlan where Jesse gets left behind. You're like, fuck, man, that's like. And the third one, like by the end of it, you're just like, oh my god, man, he's leaving. Oh my god, did they get the new song? Like, and they're all about to die at the end. And you're like, is this a fucking kids movie? And
Yeah, right?
yeah, so just so phenomenal. Like, these movies are so good.
They are very good. So we are up to top 3, correct?
Top 3.
Top 3. So my number 3 is one that I've seen recently. It is one that I would never have included, in years past. If you asked me when I was 22 and I saw this movie, I would never have included it because I would never would have checked it out. The movie is Michael Mann's The Insider.
I need to see this. I need to see this.
It's so fucking good, dude. It's so fucking good. Again, it's because it's one of those movies that's like it's like Social Network. It's like anything that involves the Big Short, but also what's the one that won Best Picture, Spotlight? It's about journalism. It is about all of that stuff. It's what Civil War is about. Secretly about. Yeah, just dudes doing the beat and the beat, getting the story. It is fascinating to watch this movie. I think I talked about this when I saw it. Was this last year? Maybe I know it was fairly recently, but very, very interesting that it's in the background, in the hum of the background, it's got BlackRock. BlackRock is, for those who don't know, they basically own everything. When we talk about going to the grocery store and you're like, let me get this dish soap or this cereal, the cereal that I think is made by a different company, that phrase of like everybody there's like 3 companies. Well, they're actually one company. It's called BlackRock. they own BlackRock and Vanguard own majority stake in basically every company in the world. Even and especially the stuff like what's the weapons company? Lockheed Martin. They own that, and Kellogg. So they got everything. That is literally everything. But the reason I mention that is just because there's this tossed off like scene where Christopher Plummer, who plays Mike Wallace, is called away, and they said they're mentioning like there's this one line of BlackRock wants to talk to you or something along those lines. Anyways, it's very funny to hear that name brought up in a movie from 1999 when 25 years later we know what they would become. Anyways, the story itself is about it's a biographical drama directed by Michael Mann, based on the Vanity Fair article, The Man Who Knew Too Much. It's a fictional account. It centers around the controversial 60-minute segment about Jeffrey Wingen, a whistleblower in the tobacco industry, covering his and CBS producers Lowell Bergman struggles as they defend his testimony against efforts to discredit and suppress it by CBS and Wingen's former employer. So right there, it's a lot, right? It's just like, what is this even about? But it has some of the best performances I've ever seen by Russell Crowe. Very reserved performance by Al Pacino. I think, what was the Pacino movie you saw recently where you're like, hey, he's got the hoo-ah? You saw Heat recently, right?
Oh, Heat, yeah.
So it's 4 years after that. So it's him just barely hanging on, just barely still got a little bit of that Dog Day Afternoon, reserved thespian actor, a little bit in there is still showing. Some of the veneer, not all the veneer has washed off him completely. Still one of his best late period Al Pacino performances. Philip Baker Hall is in this. But the reason you really, really need to see this is for a scene with Mr. I'm trying to look for his name. I don't see his name in here. You know his face. Michael Gambon? Is it Michael Gambon? No. Michael Gambon's in here. No, it's a murderer's row again of character actors. Mr. Tobolowsky's in here, obviously. I got to find this guy's name because it is an incredible performance. That it's a supporting performance, but it's one of those that pop up a lot on like can you believe this fucking performance is in this movie that nobody's ever heard of? Oh, this is gonna piss me off. Bruce McGill. Okay, Bruce McGill. You know, do you know his name, or do you have to? I'll show you his.
No, I don't.
Show you his wiki, and you'll be like, oh yeah, that guy. One of those.
Oh,
one of
he's
the,
that. Yeah, he is that guy.
He is that guy. Yeah. You should watch this movie just for his scene in this movie where it's not a trial, so there's no you can't object to anything, but the tobacco company is still trying to object, and he's like, yeah, no, your objection was recorded, and he's got this great Savannah deep south fucking persona and accent, so he's like, your objection was recorded, sir. It's just that great courtroom fucking blustering performance that stands out in so many of these movies. Cannot recommend this movie enough to you. Again, was this the fourth one that I brought up that you haven't seen? Yeah. But this is incredible. Incredible story, incredibly directed. It's got that frantic sort of Tony Scott editing style, but it's definitely got the Michael Mann sheen to it. One of the best 1990 movies. Really regret not seeing this earlier, but like I said, I probably wouldn't appreciate it as much as I do now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love Michael Mann. Most of his movies, even the ones I don't like, I think are, they have a lot of merit to them.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm covering one next week on Unrated that people don't like, Black Hat.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is one. It was funny. It came up at work like 2 days ago. Like somebody was just like, "Can you ever see Insider?" And I was like, "No, I need to."
Yeah.
So it's yeah. So this is one that's been on my list for a long time.
So fucking good. Oh! What is your number 3 1990 film?
So I have a feeling this one might crop up later on your list. How do you want to handle it if it is? Should we just put a pin in it, or do you want to talk about it now? I should talk about it now. You talk about it later. Or how do you want to?
My next two movies. Well, one of them you probably know what it is. One you might not. But what is your number 3?
My number 3 is The Matrix.
I do not have it on there.
Oh wow, that's surprising. Okay, yeah, no, okay, yeah. I mean, it's the fucking Matrix, right? Like
the fucking Matrix.
It's like, this movie's good for so many reasons. It does that thing we've talked about over and over again about questioning reality and toxic masculinity, and as I've alluded to earlier, like, this is a movie that, like a recently released I Saw the TV Glow, is, has a lot of trans and queer coding stuff in it. Obviously, we know that the Wachowskis who directed it, were identifying at the time as male. They've obviously both since come out. And, so this movie can really be read as a metaphor for that. But beyond that, even if you don't know that, most people at the time didn't clock and realize it, it's still the fucking Matrix. It's still this movie about questioning our reality and just like, what is real in the world around us and feeling lost, and like we're all office drones, much like Office Space. And it's also beyond that, just one of the greatest action movies ever made. And when I saw this thing in theater, like, this is a movie, obviously, I love The Matrix, right? Who doesn't? But when I got to see this thing in a theater, in a Dolby theater, which is all about, like, incredible sound design, it blew my fucking mind, because I'd only seen this on, like, my parents' small TV, or, like, I remember watching this movie in, like, 2000 on, like, a tiny little TV,
Yeah.
and watching it on this big screen where, like, the explosions and the gunshots, your seat is shaking. But even the small moments, like the rain pattering on the wall, like that, it was just so moving. It was like I was watching it for the first time. There's all the stuff about, like, the Alice in Wonderland metaphors. Keanu Reeves in this movie, like, without this movie, there's obviously no John Wick. Obviously the stunt coordinators who on this movie went on to direct the first John Wick, and they both had, great careers since. Carrie Ann Moss, Lawrence Fishburne, Hugo Weaving giving one of the great all-time villain roles in this. I could go on. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure what's The Matrix? Everybody's talked about it for a long time. It is clearly one of, it's one of the movies that is most identified with 99 being such a great year. And it's some, we talked about genre. This is some good sci-fi shit right here.
It is. It's spawned, like I said, sci-fi shit, sci-fi animation, Animatrix. Have you still not seen the Animatrix?
I've seen the Animatrix.
Oh, you've seen it.
Animatrix is weird because it's like some parts of it are absolute dog shit, and some parts of it are like the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. One of the things I didn't realize about this movie is it cost $63 million to make and looks fucking incredible. Still looks incredible. You know, one of those movies that you go back to and like, Jesus Christ, how did they do that? Talked about Soderbergh
I mean,
talking.
part of that's inflation, but still, like,
Yeah.
that's impressive.
Yeah, talking about Soderbergh last week, talking about how he doesn't know how George Miller isn't still making Fury Road, and
Yeah.
$63 million wouldn't get you craft services today with some of these budgets and some of these movies, and just trying to keep the budget down but still make an incredible movie. That is a lesson there, and how to do that. It makes 40. It says on Wikipedia 467, but it must have made so much more than that. I remember it being one of the most profitable movies of all time, alongside some movies I might talk about later. What else are we going to say about this? Yeah, it's a Warner Brothers movie. So again, Warner Brothers and Zaslav would have looked at this now and be like, yeah, the direct-to-video or not. We'll just put it away for tax purposes. Nominated for a bunch of awards at the 72nd Academy Awards for Best Visuals, Best Editing, Best Sound Editing, winning all 4 categories. Yeah, just... Blew my mind as a 14-year-old, 13, 14-year-old. This came in March of 99. And launched, like I said, multimedia, explosion with the video game, the animation, the Matrix Online, got a lot of people obsessed with trying to hack shit. The Matrix Online, I never played that, but I played the, what was it called? What was the game that came out alongside of it that I talked about before?
Enter the Matrix.
Enter the Matrix. Thank you. Yeah, that was also ahead of its time because you were doing things that you could obviously do with mods. I think mods, the modding community was definitely up and running by that time for PC games. But that was the first time as a console player that you're like, holy shit, I could just have unlimited ammo and unlimited lives and shit like that. So that was groundbreaking for that fact. And again, it looks incredible. I'm trying to think of the movie that's like, it's visually like Jurassic Park, like so many movies from the 90s where it incorporates live action stuff, practical effects with special effects, with digital effects, stuff like that. It incorporates it seamlessly. And the scenes that look so incredible are the wet stuff, the scenes where Neo and Trinity are trying to rescue Morpheus from that room, and the sprinkler system goes off, so you're having to do slow motion, not just a regular person slow motion, not just bullet time, but also dude's wet and trying to keep all that stuff.
The bullet going through the droplets is one of the coolest things, and it hits his leg and the blood. Like fucking man, it looks better than a lot of movies today because they know how to use CGI sparingly to use it to like, and it's interesting because I had a similar conversation about this same topic on a podcast of mine that's not going to be coming out for a while, but on Crimson Peak, which interestingly enough I talked about with Phil Isco, who hosts the podcast. It used to be podcast like it's 1999, now it's 92. But he's watched and reviewed every single 1999 movie, so he might know more about 99 movies than anyone.
Yeah. That's very cool. You guys talked with him. Yeah. Matrix, fucking great. So that was your number 2, correct?
Number 3.
Oh boy. Okay.
You're always jumping me one up. I'll jump one ahead of me.
I am. Okay, so that was your number 3. So we're doing
my number 2 are gonna be show how much of a weirdo I am. I think this is like they're movies that people know. But man, they're weird. They're weird.
Yeah. So my number 2 is it is reflective of me being almost 40 and seeing movies for the first time from 99 in the past couple of years. That is all to say, my number 2 is The Talented Mr. Ripley. I mentioned this when talking about the Ripley show that they have on Netflix, which I didn't get through. But I went back and watched the first one, directed by Anthony Minghella, starring Mr. Matt Damon. Again, the early movies of the movie stars of the future. Matt Damon,
right.
Paltrow, Jude Law. This is obviously after Good Will Hunting, so this is his coming out party for Matt Damon. I think Jude Law was in. I'm trying to think if he was in anything before this. I know he would go on to be in, or yeah, he was in Existence. That's what I was talking about, him being in multiple things in '99. This is the second thing he was in from that year. Very young. Kate Blanchett. Philip Seymour Hoffman has an incredible role in this. How's
Damn,
the
I gotta watch this thing.
how's the peeping Tom? Oh my God, this is the fifth one where you're like, haven't seen this shit. Woo! I'm just
this is the big.
schooling you.
This is the big. I mentioned it at the beginning. I hadn't seen it.
Okay, yes. Whew.
Yeah.
Again, so
I know,
many
this is a big one.
iconic lines and character
I
actors.
love Damon too. I don't know why I haven't watched this movie.
Character actors.
I watched The
stealing
Great Wall
scenes.
before I saw this.
That's terrible. That's embarrassing for you. Another Philip Baker Hall movie with him in a movie like this in a supporting role. Whew, just really incredible. I can't speak highly enough of this. People at their peak sexiness in this film. Jesus, so well written, so well shot, so well acted. Yeah, Talented Miss Ripley, one of the best.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah, thank you.
It's on my list. It's on my list.
So you got Talented Miss Ripley, The Insider. What was the other ones? Three Kings. What was I thought there was SLC Punk. Yeah, SLC Punk.
Yeah.
They're all very good, and I am genuinely jealous that you get to experience these for the first time. Yeah, great stuff.
Half of your list I haven't seen, but you've seen everything I've mentioned so far, right?
I believe so. Right?
You've seen October Sky. I think that'd be the only one that maybe
I honestly need to revisit it. That's one of those when I was filling out my Letterboxd thing for the first time. I was like, I know it. I know the performances. I know the story. I'll just say I saw it. Yeah. What is your number two?
Okay, so this might be the other one that you might not have seen, because when you sort on Letterboxd by popularity, it's this one and October Sky at the bottom of the list. But yeah, this one, like I said, it's a weird one. It's a really subversive film that is kind of about the film industry, but it's also just like existential in a lot of ways, and just kind of about interiority and identity. And it's a biopic, which I usually don't like, but I think this is a masterpiece of a biopic. Movie directed by Milos Forman. My second favorite Milos Forman movie, of course, is also my second favorite 1999 movie, and that would be Man on the Moon. This is, of course, the story of Andy Kaufman, as played by Jim Carrey, who, his behavior behind the set, not great. But this is in that time period when he was doing a lot of really interesting things and kind of breaking away from the Carrey persona. But it feels like his portrayal of Andy Kaufman is a little bit like Carrey-esque, but in a much deeper, more interesting way than something, like movies that I like from the early 90s, like The Mask or something. But like, he's really doing some interesting stuff here. It's just, about this guy Andy Kaufman, who kind of changed, TV, maybe, or maybe he didn't do anything at all, and, who knows? But it's so weird and eclectic and existential, and there's almost some magical realism in it. And like, I won't spoil the ending because I want people to watch this movie. But the ending is like one of those endings where you question, like, okay, what happened though? Like, it kind of gives you a little bit of almost like, yeah, maybe there was a little bit of magic at the end of this movie. So yeah, Man on the Moon had to be high up on my list.
Yeah. So spoiler. Let's just talk spoilers for this movie, because I think I know what you're talking about, but I just want to make sure. There's a part, I think near the end, where he's having like he has stomach cancer or something. And he goes to like a shaman to have it removed, and he sees out of the corner of his eye how he's doing it. Right.
Yeah. There's that, and it's kind of implied because in real life Andy Kaufman died, but he was always doing this stuff where like he was playing these really elaborate pranks, and people always like, well, if anybody was gonna fake their death, it would be Andy Kaufman. So there's enough to make you think that he did get better and he did fake it. He also, him and Paul Giamatti also both play like his agent slash like they're doing like dual roles where they're like it's this character that they've kind of created, Andy Kaufman and Bob Zmuda, where it's Tony Clifton is like his fake agent thing, and each of them plays it at certain times. And their last scene, he's giving this performance, and you're kind of like, oh well, that's Bob taking over that persona. But then it pans into the audience, and you see Paul Giamatti watching it, and it is actually Jim Carrey up there. So it's giving you like, oh no, like he did survive. Like that's it gives and it's saying like, oh, at first it's like, yo, okay, so that's just somebody else taking on this role, but then it's like, oh, but it's not him. Is it someone else? Is it still Andy? We don't know. It doesn't ever tell us. It's an ambiguous ending, but done in a way that doesn't feel pretentious. It just feels very thought provoking.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring that up because I was watching this video. I'll link it in the chat. It's a video by REM called Imitation of Life. They released it like a year after The Great Beyond, which is the song they recorded for Man in the Moon soundtrack. And the video is so fucking cool. I know if you want to check it out for a second. It's basically using like a 20-second footage of like a pool scene, a scene at a pool, and people are miming like you do in a video the words to the song, but the video loops over and over again for like 20 seconds. And the thing that changes is where the camera zooms in on. It's one of the most inventive things I've ever seen in terms of like a video, even just a music video. But very, very cool video that I rediscovered. That happens a lot when you go on YouTube. You rediscover stuff like this. Where like, holy shit, I remember that song. Fucking great song, great band, and great video. So if anybody's looking for really inventive, like late 90s, early 2000s video, definitely check out Imitation of Life. Really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm kind of watching it on mute right now, and it seems really cool. I'm gonna watch it with the sound on after we get done. Probably that's cool. I love REM, and the song they did for the movie, like is he the man on the moon? Like so it's fucking great.
Yes. So that was your number 2. Let's go through a little bit here, and I won't. Number 2. Yeah, well, we finished on number 2, right? I did mine 2 and you did your 2. Yeah. So we're getting to number 1. Before we do that, let's do some honorable mentions. I have a lot here, and I'll try to avoid the top of the list just in case your pick is on there. Some stuff that I considered putting on the list. Like you said, Election was great. You put that on there. Some more obscure stuff. That's the thing too. Like 99, if you were like a pretentious film nerd, a pretentious like film student, this was your fucking year because you had
right.
Speaking of international stuff that I didn't mention, Run Lola Run is on there. Fantastic fucking movie. Yeah. Dogma, Kevin Smith's Dogma, fantastic film. Sleepy Hollow for the horror heads out there, for Johnny, what's his name?
Depp.
Johnny Depp, thank you. I just completely blanked out his name. Let's see. Deep Blue Sea, really cool sci-fi action thing.
Oh man, that was you stepped on my joke. I was gonna say that it was my joke from number 1. I just watched that movie for the first time like a couple months ago because it's one of my friend's favorite movies.
Let's see. There's just so many. Like I went and tried to find as big of a list I could find from there, and yeah, it's a very good idea for a podcast series because there is literally so many. I don't know how many episodes they actually did finish up with. They did
every sinsingle movie. They did every single movie that was released wide in 1999.
Mystery Men.
And even some that weren't.
I fucking love Mystery Men. Again,
great.
A movie that wouldn't get written, like not even talking about a movie that doesn't get made or put out there. It's just like, who the fuck would think of that? and have that cast, that fucking cast of people acting fucking ridiculous. You'd never get that cast again today. Very strange movies like, let me see, just a lot of strange little movies like The Limey I mentioned, Steven Soderbergh's little indie he made before the Ocean movie started coming out. I don't know if this is going to be your number 1. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I will mention it. I'll take this out in case it is your number 1. Bringing Out the Dead, Mr. Scorsese's Bringing Out the Dead.
I haven't actually. I need to watch. That's very high on my list of movies.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's not on your list. Idle Hands I mentioned, with Devon Sawa also in a 1999 movie. World Is Not Enough, a really not great Bond movie, but a fantastic garbage.
It's fine. It's perfectly serviceable. It's certainly better than the next two.
Fantastic garbage song, one of the best Bond songs. I'll fight you on that movie, that song
No, it's
being
a great
good.
song. It's a great song.
It is a great song. A couple more. Do you have any on here that stand out to you?
Yeah, you're taking up everything, man. You're just naming every movie that's ever come out in '99. So I'll name a couple that you did not mention that were big ones. I had Sixth Sense on my list originally.
Yeah.
I just ended up bumping it off at one point. So obviously, game changing movie. There's a couple Disney ones that came out this year that I think are pretty great. Tarzan, and then Fantasia 2000 actually comes out.
The Straight Story, which is a Disney movie,
well.
apparently.
The fuck is no? I'm talking about Disney animated canon, not things that are owned by like what? Galaxy Quest. You didn't mention.
Yeah.
Galaxy Quest is obviously great. You mentioned Dogma. But I do want to say that one I think is probably my favorite Kevin Smith film by quite a bit. I'm not a huge Kevin Smith fan, but I really love Dogma. I think it has a lot of interesting things to say about religion. And a movie I just saw for our Letterboxd Shuffle, Virgin Suicides, almost made my list. Really, really interesting movie, and one that I probably still need to fully grapple with. So there's, and then shout out to Smart House. Disney Channel original movie. I love that movie. Directed by our boy LeVar Burton.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that movie.
Yep. Oh man, I guess you're an older millennial. It missed the micro generation, but that was a big thing. It's a big thing to anybody born in like the late early 80s, early 90s. I think that was when we all first saw Katie Seagal.
Oh, okay. Wait, Katie Seagal from?
Yeah, sorry, Katie Seagal, or is it S.A.? Yeah,
Katie, not the
Leela.
Really? Because I guess you wouldn't have been watching what's the show she was in? Married with Children.
Yeah, Married with Children was a little. I was a little. That was early. I would have been way too young for that show.
Yeah,
I was aware of it, but I don't think I put it together.
The first thing you've seen her in was that? Like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Where did that show end?
Good question. Married with Children started in the year of our Lord, 1987. Went to 1987 to 1997.
Okay, so yeah, it would have ended when I was 7 and started when I was -2. So
a couple more. Summer Sam, fantastic. Is that a joint? A Mr. What's his name? Spike Lee. Yeah, the Spike Lee joint. Yep.
Okay.
Let's see. Straight Story talked about. Jawbreaker, another weird 99 thing. What else we got? There's a couple more that I want to mention. Varsity Blues had a fantastic, one of the best soundtracks. I think I bought that CD soundtrack before even seeing the movie. Do you know about this Varsity Blues soundtrack?
No.
Let me just pull up this real quick because this has got a murderer's row of people on the soundtrack. So we got Green Day, Nice Guys Finish Last. Do you know that song?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just singing for you, but
still sing it. Go ahead.
Nice Guys Finish Last. Something like that.
Sounds perfect.
Thank you.
Was that the lead singer of Green Day, or was that you, Damien? I can't tell. Were you just playing Spotify right now?
They got the song "Run" by Collective Soul. I could never sing that. I could never do any disgusting variation of that, but that's a great song. I thought there was a bunch of other ones that were on. Oh, Hot for Teacher was obviously, they just included that. Thunderstruck by AC/DC. My Hero, I thought was written for the movie, but apparently that was just off of their first album. Yeah, great soundtrack. One of the best for soundtracks of 99. That was another thing I forgot to mention about movies from 99. Fantastic film, fantastic film scores and soundtracks. Yeah. So I think that'll do it, unless there's anything, any other honorable mentions you wanted to talk about here.
That's all the honorable mentions that I got. I mean, I guess maybe. There's a few that I haven't seen since like the 90s.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how well like House on Haunted Hill holds up, so I'll just skip over those.
There's a whole second list I made and I forgot about it, so I'm just gonna rattle off some here real quick. Ed TV, Detroit Rock City, Pushing Tin, Lake Placid, Drop Dead Gorgeous, Teaching Mrs. Tingle, Wing Commander, Forces of Nature, Deuce Bigelow, Male Gigolo,
Commander.
Wing Commander. Yeah, that was based
Movie
on.
that everyone hates. A video game.
It's a movie with a guy in it that we both love. Matthew Lillard's in it. Freddie Prinze Jr. Just for that. It's the teenagers. What's the movie with the bugs and everyone thinks it's not fascist or not anti-fascist, but it is.
Starship Troopers.
Yeah, it's the teenagers version of Starship Troopers. It's the teeny bopper Starship Troopers. Snow Falling on Cedars, which took the fucking best supporting actor away from some guy, right? What am I thinking of? Help me out here.
I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
Mr. Snow Falling on Cedars. Michael Caine, right? Won the.
Took it away from, I don't know, Denzel. Did he get nominated?
Wait, what am I talking about? What am I talking about here?
What are you talking about?
What's the movie with snow and cedars in it and the kids? And he's like, Michael Caine won Best Supporting Actor that year for
the Cider House Rules?
Cider House Rules. Thank you. I always conflate Cider House Rules and the Snow Falling on Cedars in my brain. I was like, what the fuck?
Oh my God.
Okay, well, we got to move on because we could sit here for the rest of the show and talk about great movies.
You're just listing every movie that came out this year.
But that people don't understand, Derek, the greatness that is the year for our Lord 1999. Like every time I tell people,
even mentioned Thomas Crown Affair, unless that's your number one.
I didn't even mention Thomas Crown House Affair, The 13th Floor, The Haunting, Go, Blast from the Past, Angel's Ashes, Baby Geniuses. Notting Hill, we didn't even.
All right, we gotta stop.
Anybody that doesn't understand why 1999 is like the outlier, like the thing that film fans always talk about as being the best year ever, this is why. Because we could just sit here and talk for the entire rest of the night about just naming off movies. So
I could do a whole list of top 5 Disney Channel original movies from 1999.
Number 1, 1999 film, Derek. Start us off. What is your number one favorite?
I'm starting off. Wait, I thought you were starting off. You're next in the order.
You start. Okay. I will go. All right. My favorite film right now, as an almost 40-year-old person, is a movie that I would have picked as a 22-year-old. My favorite film from 1999 that I think is also it transcends the year. It's incredibly influential and is the Blair Witch Project. And it is still fucking scary. Fuck you, Family Guy, for ruining this movie where they're sitting in the theater. And I think it was something where a bit was like Peter's blind and Brian has to narrate movies for him. And I still remember the joke of like, nothing's happening, something about a map and it's over. People are pissed. It's like, fuck you. That'd be so fucking good.
I've seen that bit since before I saw the movie, and now that you're saying it back, it's so funny.
It's a good joke. Fuck you, but still, fuck you.
It's really good.
Here, right this way. Watch your step. Okay, they're in the woods. The camera keeps on moving. I think they're looking for some witch or something. I don't know. I wasn't listening. Nothing's happening. Something about a map. Nothing's happening. It's over. A lot of people in the audience look pissed.
You think people say like, oh, it kicked off the found footage craze, but actually if you go back and look at what kicked off the found footage craze for the next like 20 years, it was really Paranormal Activity from 2007. It took like another 8 years for another movie to really, really kick it off. But
I would say it was even Cloverfield, honestly, which came out a year before Paranormal.
That's I could hear that argument in court. Yeah. I think what this movie does that I haven't really talked about before, because I've gone back and watched a bunch of found footage stuff. One called that people love called The Bay that Barry Levinson did in like 2011. I went back and watched that, and there's actually subgenres of found footage, which is like the newsreel footage, where they have like what do they call that? When they interview people for a documentary, and the thing that they
B-roll?
call it's got B-roll. You're correct. It has B-roll, but it also has what is the name of that? Where they basically interview people about the event later on. So it has that sort of newsreel footage feel.
Okay.
The Bay definitely. There's like a subgenre of found footage movies called that mockumentaries. but as a found footage horror thing. Anyways, they have that in here. They have that at the beginning. The thing people, I think, forget about the movie is the beginning of it is them going around Burkittsville talking to people about their understanding of the Burkittsville witch, the Burkittsville haunting, the curse of the Burkittsville witch is the name of the documentary. I think they started off making in the Blair Witch, and also. The acting in this is so fucking good. It's a lot better than a lot of found footage movies, and that's the thing that turns me off about a lot of found footage movies is the acting. Honestly, it's not very good. And a lot of this stuff I watched, As Above, As Below, or something like that. As
Above, So Below.
As Above, So Below. Thank you. Yeah, really, really good movie. Very good use of like aesthetics. Yeah, it's very good. There's a couple others that have very good aesthetics and have very good jump scares, and that's the other thing too of like has Wreck is a movie that's very, very good, but it has that feeling of, somebody finishing their sentence and then a thing happens. I think a lot of found footage movies would benefit from just having not that. I understand you have exposition and you have a story you're trying to tell inside the movie, but I think a lot of that stuff would benefit from having the jump scare or having the plot being pushed forward in the middle of somebody's sentence, make it feel a lot more natural. And that's the thing that in Blair Witch, people are just talking and they're talking about the math, sure. But it's a lot of just them just hanging out and just having conversations that aren't about the plot itself. They have that, what's the rule, Derek, where, two women talk about something that doesn't have to do with other men or the plot of it?
It's based on her name. The Bechdel test.
The Bechdel test. Thank you. So there's a version of that where characters will be talking about something, having a natural conversation that isn't about the plot. And I think that really helps sell this movie in terms of its natural feeling, where a lot of this movie and a lot of the conversations, a lot of the dialogue isn't about the curse itself. It's not about the witch. It's about them and their interpersonal problems and making the movie and them just saying, fuck the movie. And that's something that's not included in a lot of found footage movies, which is you're making a movie. You have to remember that these people are out here trying to probably make their first movie or trying to, rationalize doing the thing and rationalizing taking time off work and spending all this money to buy all this equipment. And that's the sort of stress you're feeling in the movie with the actors themselves. So just overall, really got to mention the performances in this movie really, really sell it. So if somebody out there is listening to this and hasn't seen Blair Witch Project yet, I highly recommend checking it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said everything about the movie, so I don't really have much to add.
When did you? I'm curious. I think we probably talked about this, but
within the last year,
you watched it within the last year?
On my Letterboxd Shuffle.
Interesting.
I'd never seen it.
Yeah.
So it was one of those movies that like I watched it and I was like, okay, like I get why this is an important movie, like why this. And it didn't really, the found footage craze didn't really hit but this was like, I know it wasn't literally the first found footage movie, but it was kind of the movie that like made that a thing. There was some very unknown movies. This movie also broke the record that Mad Max had held for a couple decades for, I guess the way to describe it would be the biggest like ratio when it comes to budget versus box office returns. It was made for nearly nothing, and it made millions upon millions of dollars, like hundreds of millions probably. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but like it did set that record. So, very important indie film,
Very important indie film, very important Sundance film, very important movie for Eduardo Sanchez, who's the actual director of the movie. Would go on to make not a lot of big stuff, but definitely big in producing things for other people. Let me see. And then just talk about the budget. It was estimated budget, very wide estimate of like $200,000 to $750,000, and that doesn't include marketing. I was listening to a podcast about, I think it was either found footage or about Blair Witch or about Sundance, but they were saying how, it was being shopped around and people liked it, and they had midnight showings going all the way back to, I want to say like 97 or early 98. And people liked it, but it didn't really pick up steam until Sundance of 99. And that was like legendary Sundance of people, coming out of the theater and being like, holy shit, have you seen this movie? So definitely benefited from, 99 being before internet takes over everything. And so it had that
it really
word of mouth.
Came out at the right time. Yeah, and people could theoretically believe it's real without just like Googling it,
definitely could believe it wasn't believe it was real because you couldn't Google it, and also it's like pre 9/11. So if you if you're a producer, movie producer, like, guys, I killed my actors, buy my movie, you could still do that, but without getting on too many lists back then. So yeah, incredible. Still my favorite movie. I still watch it every year, and still very much works. And I mentioned, you saw Tar, right? And I mentioned how I've watched this movie so much that the Mike you could hear in the background. I was like, that's that Mike from the movie. I know that exact scream. Yeah. All right. So we are number one for you, Derek. What is your number one favorite movie from 1999?
I mean, you didn't even mention it at all on your list. You didn't mention it in your honorable mentions. I am shocked, but this is a
Elmo Goes to Grouchland.
Close. The Bicentennial Man. No. So this is a movie, that I think, does everything that we've talked about and what made this such a great year. It's got the existential magical realism of Man on the Moon cranked up maybe to the next level. It's got the questions of like marriage and do you ever really know the person you're married to of Eyes Wide Shut. It's got the, greater aspirations and dreams of October Sky. It's got the things that in Fight Club and The Matrix about, is this reality really our own, and all the things about toxic masculinity. It does all those things and more. Number one being John Malkovich. Another movie that I was shocked you did not mention this at all.
Yeah.
Because for me, this is one of my all-time favorite movies, not just of 1999, not just of the 90s, but of all time. I love this movie, for all the reasons I just mentioned. It does all of those things. It's so weird in a great way. Like the collaboration of Spike Jonze and Charlie Kaufman, it feels like one of the all-time great director-writer pairings. And I really they would eventually team up again in Adaptation, which is a movie that directly references being John Malkovich extensively. So those movies feel like they're building on each other. But yeah, this is such a great movie that becomes more and more weird and more magically realistic as it goes along. And The Matrix, once again, it deals with trans allegories and stuff like that. Obviously, Spike Jonze and Charlie Kaufman aren't trans people like the Wachowski sisters, but still, it tackles that in a really interesting way that holds up pretty well for a movie that came out in 1999. Great performances all around. It's one of those movies. It's so weird and specific. It could only being John Malkovich, and it took him a long time to convince John Malkovich to be the person, because you can't have this being Tom Cruise. It wouldn't work. It has to be John Malkovich, and there's a portal that goes into John Malkovich, and then it gets so why would this thing exist? And then the reason, the world building of this is so specific and weird. It's there's a reason this exists, and it's weirder than you could possibly imagine. It's because of this cult that keeps reincarnating themselves throughout the centuries, and Charlie Sheen shows up as himself in the end, and it just goes off the rails, and it's all about puppeteering, and the end is so perfect and just haunting, and the main character in this is just this super toxic guy who he just falls in love with this woman because he falls in love with the idea of her, and there's a lot of that stuff wrapped into this too, and it's just a perfect movie. It's just a perfect movie in every regard.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. Yeah, again, it's a marker. It's a motif that we see over and over again with movies from '99. Strange science fiction movies that, I'm sure if I took enough time, I could find movies like this. But Charlie Kaufman, who wrote the movie, would go on to make other very, very strange movies. Eternal Sunshine. You see a lot of being John Malkovich in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, of going into somebody's head and what that would look like, and relationships. And Synecdoche, New York is very much that, of just being these worlds that are circuitous and break down and fold in on each other. And Anomalisa is also that, and I'm Thinking of Things is also that, and he's just
anything too, yeah.
What's that?
I'm thinking of Ending Things.
I'm thinking of Anything, yeah. Just to get inside that guy's head is something I would never want to be, but you get very close to it with his movies. And I would just love to be in those pre-production meetings and those production meetings and listen to him talk to the set designers and stuff like that of like, here's what I want to see, and them trying to make that a reality, and them trying to shoot this stuff, and them trying to make sense of it and keep it all straight and think, going back to Soderbergh's talking about how to keep things straight, and I could just imagine how the script supervisor is trying to keep the script straight, and especially with Synecdoche, New York, of how much of it folds in on itself. And yeah, this is one I really, really enjoy. Really glad you have it on your number one. And like you said, can't believe we haven't talked about it yet, because this is such a Damien movie.
Right. I was like, oh man. I was like, he's gonna step on my toes. He's gonna have it as number 2 or 3, or like he's gonna say it in honorable mentions, and I'll tell him to cut it out. And I was like, wow, shocked he didn't bring it up. So I was like, cool, I get to talk about it.
Yeah, I went through like so many different websites. I went through ChatGPT and like, give me a list. Just give me a quick list of like movies from '99. I did that a bunch of different times, and yeah, very, very funny that's never popped up yet.
Yeah, I just went to my letterbox and like, sorted by my top ranked, and I was like, yeah, it's Malkovich. Like there was a lot of my rest of my list moved around. I reordered things, but that was always number 1.
Yes, very, very good pick. Very, very, very good pick. All right, so that is our top 10 movies of '99. You can see why we didn't try to include this into a regular episode, because we tend to go long on these as podcasters tend to do. If you ever looked at the runtime of Screen Drafts, it's they get very unwieldy very, very quickly. So yeah, great list, and definitely a lot that I still need to revisit. You especially with 5 of mine. Yeah, 5 of mine being on there. I would recommend any of them to check out first. I would probably say to check out first, probably Insider, just for one scene, and you'll know it when it happens. And I can't wait for you to to tell me like, yes, that was definitely worth it. And that's definitely an insane scene, and definitely a scene stealer from a very good character actor. Yeah. All right. So I think, we finished up there. So right into midnightfilmpod@gmail.com. Go to my letterbox, Midnight Film Pod, there to give me any suggestions for anything we missed, and tell me and Derek, what are your favorite movies from the year of our Lord in 1999? So do you want to do some light plug-in here, if you will, Derek?
Yeah. Check out Underrated Movie Podcast, the other podcast that I do talking about underrated movies. I already mentioned I'm in the middle of a miniseries called Extended Edition, talking about director's cuts, alternative cuts, assembly cuts, what have you, of films that are underrated. Black Hat's going to be the next one that came out. Alien 3 was the one that just came out. And then, got some good stuff in the pipeline, including that episode with Phyllis Gove, who is the co-writer / creator of the TV show, not the movie that we talked about, the TV show Sleepy Hollow, and the host of podcasts like It's, who knows much more about 99 movies than us or probably anyone else on the planet.
Yeah. I mentioned a little bit, but I watched American Movie just before this, just to check it out, and it's just so goddamn depressing to look at a scenario like that of a guy who's just trying to pursue a creative life, and is just shooting himself in the foot over and over again, and the damage and the destruction that he leaves in his wake to his friends and family that he's pulling into his schemes and his machinations. It's an incredible movie. I highly recommend anyone check it out. That's just once. Yeah. What else did I say? Oh, I hit between the last time and now, I hit 1,000 followers on Letterboxd through sheer grit and will and determination, and following 3,400 people. I finally got myself to 1,000 followers. So let's go for, I don't know, 1,100. Let's say. Let's hit that. Let's hit that. Hit the tippity top, as Dr. Disrespect on Twitch used to say. Hit that tippity top, and we're only halfway up. So let's hit a new goal, 1,100. That'd be my new goal. So yeah, like I said, check me out on Midnight Film Pod over there. Recommend me some stuff. Yep. Check out my reviews, like it all, subscribe to it all of that stuff. Yes.
Yeah, I was at 100, and I went down to 99. Two people unfollowed me. One person followed me. But so, you know what? I'm appropriately enough for this episode at 99 followers. So.
Yes, appropriately enough. All right. So with that, I have been Damien.
I've been Derek.
And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.